Hello, 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 everyone. Thank you for coming in and spending time with your Bible Big Brother. My name is Christian. This is day 12 of our ESV Study Bible in a year as we go through the scriptures, utilizing the ESV Study Bible notes and maps and all the good information that is within there. Um, Today, I'll give us a recap of where we've been so far. I hope you guys had a great rest day yesterday. Um, and then we'll read the scriptures. Today's scripture reading is Genesis chapter 31 to 33. And then we'll look at the ESV Study Bible notes, and I'll give my personal commentary about what we have just read. Then we'll finish off with the history of salvation verses. Before we continue, though, I do want to take care of some housekeeping items. So finally, I have learned how to do a proper description on the videos. And so if you're watching this video, you've probably see a great, nice description deal there for this video. But if you want to go back to the previous videos, I have gone through and cleaned those videos up. So now there should be tags on every video, so little chapter breaks. So you don't have to go through you don't have to feel like you have to sit through the entire teaching in one. You can break it up if you would like. Also, I learned how to link certain things. And speaking of that, I know I said earlier on one of the our episodes here that I don't get any kickbacks from you guys purchasing the ESV Study Bible. Well, that no longer is true if you use the affiliate link that I have in the description, right? So this is the purpose of this is not to be out here hawking Bibles, but if you guys would like to support the channel a little bit there, I get a small percentage of the profits from the purchase of ESV Study Bible if you utilize the affiliate link. That does not change the price for you. The price would still be the same, but Amazon would just give me a small token of reward for you guys utilizing that link. But you don't have to. It's up for you. Also, too, I'll have affiliate links to different resources that I describe or that I talk about here. So I'll put here some resources that I've talked about before on the channel, and I'll leave that probably for the next few episodes. I'll leave those same affiliate links to different books that I've talked about. The Nancy Piercy book, the Scribes and Scripture book I know I discussed here, and then also too I've talked about different podcasts and things like that. So I'll leave links to those podcasts. So just in case you guys wanted to go and look at the other stuff and to have other resources to help out with your personal Bible study. Okay. And without further ado, let's get to our recap. So we are in Genesis. We are now about to start chapter 31 to 33. In the first 30 chapters, we went through chapters 1 to 11. That's the primeval history, things that kind of like the prehistory of man and how the world came to be about. We saw in chapter 1, God create the creation week, where God created the world in 6 days, rested on the seventh, and where everything was pretty hunky dory. And chapter 2, we got a magnified view about what happened on day 6, where God creates man out of the ground and fashions him, and then places him in the Garden of Eden, and then makes the woman from his side. After that, in chapter 3, though, we see a fall and disobedience from humans and fall, and they are kicked out of Eden, right? And there's been a struggle for humans ever since they have gotten out of Eden, and things have just spiraled downwards. But even with the curse that God put upon humans for their disobedience, He also provided hope, stating that there will be an offspring of the woman who would crush the head of the serpent, but the serpent would um, uh, bite his heel. And we have been searching through certain genealogies to try to see if the offspring that was prophesied there by God or promised by God would come about. And so we saw the birth of Cain and Abel, and then we got Cain's genealogy. But very quickly, we saw that Cain pretty much can't be the person because he ends up killing his brother. Is banished from polite society. And then we go through his genealogy and we end up at Lamech, who seems to be even worse than Cain. And then we get to Seth's genealogy and we get down to Noah. And there seems to be promise when it comes to Noah. There's the kind of declaration from his father, Lamech, that Noah would bring them comfort and provide them rest and almost reverse the curse, right? Which in a sense he does. Or God partners with him as he does so. So God floods the earth. So there's a rest there, and wipes out all of humanity except for Noah, his wife, and his 3 sons and their wives. So 8 people get on the ark, but with some animals as well. And there's a recreation that happens. From there, Noah has some success tilling the ground, right, which was the job of Adam, and the curse for Adam was that he would toil the ground in pain. And so, but Noah's able to have some quick success, but overindulges in that success and becomes drunk. And then there happens to be some, something happens within the tent between Ham seeing the nakedness of Noah. There's some discussion about what might have happened, but whatever it was something that caused Noah to be very angry and to place a curse on the son of Ham, Canaan. And so from there, we get a wide variety of genealogies to see where people are going out to. But before we see an actual disbursement, we go to the Tower of Babel and see humans try to collectivize against God, and God separates them, and by separating their languages, and which causes them to finally spread out and fill the earth. From there, we continue down the genealogy of Shem and get to a man named Abram. And Abram seems to be very promising because God is having conversations with him. God tells him to leave his family and his kindred and go to a land that God tells him. And so he listens to God and he leaves his family and all that he knows and goes to a foreign land. And God now starts to make promises and covenants with this character named Abram. And from there, he starts to promise him a large amount of descendants, nations that will come from him, and the land that that God has showed him. He promised that land to his descendants. And then we start to see some great highlights come from Abram, where Abram shows great faith in God as he goes and sacrifices himself to and much of his treasure to go and find his nephew Lot. And he has great success in battle. And when the king of Sodom offers to allow Abram to take advantage of the spoils of war, he does not, because he says that he's going to trust God to provide for him. We also see him give a tithe to the priest of God, Melchizedek. But outside of that, he does have a few screw ups where twice he lies about who his wife is when he goes to foreign places, so to save his tail. And instead of trusting God through that, he tries to take things into his own hands. Even after God promises that a child will come from his loins, and though he has a barren wife, Sarah at the time, or Sarai is her name at the time, he does not. He and his wife Sarai do not trust God to make it happen, so they try to force it to happen by having their slave in-house Hagar be the mother of the child that would come from the body of Abram. But God tells him that no, not just any child will come from his body, but also from the body of his old barren wife. And so we see a battle now go between the child of natural descent and the child of supernatural descent. The child of natural descent was Ishmael. The child of supernatural descent was Isaac. And we see God discuss Isaac as the promised offspring. So we're going back to Genesis 3, wondering, is this the one? And Isaac shows promise, but he has a few snafus. But he does end up having two sons. One is Esau, the other is Jacob. And there is a prophecy about Jacob that he, being the younger, would be served by his older brother, which is very unnatural or very unusual in that culture at that time, right? The firstborn is usually the one where everything runs through, but here, the secondborn. And so now our eyes get focused on Jacob, and we're wondering, hey, is this the promised offspring? But there seems to be some issues going on with Jacob as well, because he and his mother conspire to deceive his father Isaac when Isaac wants to go and pronounce a blessing on his firstborn son. And so they go and have this deceptive plot against Isaac. Isaac, instead of blessing Esau, blesses Jacob. And there now becomes strife between Jacob and Esau threatens Jacob's life. And from this, his mother, Rebecca, wants to send him back to Haran to find a wife instead of marrying one of the local Canaanite women, right? Unlike his brother. His brother, Esau, married two Canaanite women, and his father Isaac also agreed that he needed to go to Haran to find a wife and not marry a Canaanite woman. And so from there, we follow Jacob to Haran. He gets there and he finds Rachel, and there is pretty much love at first sight. He figures out that she is in the house of his relative, and so he goes and stays there. And he asks Rachel's father Laban for her hand, and they work out a price. Back in that time, there was usually men would give a bride price to the fathers, and his price was to work 7 years for Rachel. But there was a kind of what goes around comes around deal with Jacob, because the night of his wedding, when things were dark, he thought that he was consummating a marriage with Rachel, but instead he was deceived by Rachel's father, Laban, and instead of getting the secondborn, Rachel, he got the firstborn, Leah. And he finds out in the morning that he has consummated a marriage with Leah. And so he has to go through the marriage week with her. And then he is given Rachel after that, but has to stay on and work another 7 years for her. And then he is getting great success while he is there. He ends up making Laban's household very wealthy because the Lord has shown favor towards him. With that, Jacob starts to look at his own prosperity and wants to leave so that he can make his own family prosperous. And doing so, he comes up with an agreement with Laban about which livestock he can take from Laban's, and it was those that were of defect. But as they agree upon it, Laban tries to deceive him again by taking away the livestock that he just agreed to give to Jacob, and gives it to his sons. And so Jacob goes on a deception mission as well to try to create the defective livestock among the sheep of Laban, so that he can have his own. And that gets us to our Our reading for the day, Genesis chapter 31. Also, too, one thing I forgot to add. On the way to Haran, uh, in a dream, Jacob had an encounter with God, where God comes and promises him the same promise that he made to Abraham and Isaac, his father, that he would multiply him, bless him, give him descendants, and that he would give him the land of Canaan. And from that encounter, we see Jacob try to worship God in a very foreign way. He messes up the worship. However, he does acknowledge that there at that spot in Bethel, he calls it the house of God. And so we'll see if we see another encounter with Jacob and the Lord today. And without further ado, we'll get into our scripture reading at Genesis chapter 31 to 33. Now Jacob heard that the sons of Laban were saying, Jacob has taken all that was our father's, and from what was our father's, he has gained all this wealth. And Jacob saw that Laban did not regard him with favor as before. Then the Lord said to Jacob, return to the land of your fathers and to your kindred, and I will be with you. So Jacob sent and called Rachel and Leah into the field where his flock was, and said to them, I see that your father does not regard me with favor as he did before. But the God of my father has been with me. You know that I have served your father with all my strength, yet your father has cheated me and changed my wages 10 times. But God did not permit him to harm me. If he said, the spotted shall be your wages, then all the flock bore spotted. And if he said, the striped shall be your wages, then all the flock bore striped. Thus, God has taken away the livestock of your father and given them to me. In the breeding season of the flock, I lifted up my eyes and saw in a dream that the goats that made it with the flock were striped, spotted, and mottled. Then the angel of God said to me in the dream, Jacob. And I said, here I am. And he said, lift up your eyes and see. All the goats that mate with the flock are striped, spotted, and mottled. For I have seen all that Laban is doing to you. I am the God of Bethel, where you anointed a pillar and made a vow to me. Now arise, go out from this land and return to the land of your kindred. Then Rachel and Leah answered and said to him, is there any portion or inheritance left to us in our father's house? Are we not regarded by him as foreigners? For he has sold us, and he has indeed devoured our money. All the wealth that God has taken away from our father belongs to us and to our children. Now then, whatever God has said to you, do. So Jacob arose and set his sons and his wives on camels. He drove away all his livestock, all his property that he had gained, the livestock and the possession that he had acquired at Padan Aram, to go to the land of Canaan to his father Isaac. Laban had gone to shear his sheep, and Rachel stole her father's household gods. And Jacob tricked Laban, the Aramean, by not telling him that he intended to flee. He fled with all that he had and arose and crossed the Euphrates. He set his face toward the hill country of Gilead. When it was told Laban on the third day that Jacob had fled, he took his kinsman with him and pursued him for 7 days, followed close after him into the hill country of Gilead. But God came to Laban, the Aramean, in a dream by night and said to him, be careful not to say anything to Jacob, either good or bad. But Laban overtook Jacob. Now, Jacob pitched his tent in the hill country, and Laban with his kinsmen pitched tents in the hill country of Gilead. And Laban said to Jacob, what have you done that you have tricked me and driven away my daughters like captives of the sword? Why do you flee secretly and trick me? And did not tell me, so that I might have sent you away with mirth and songs, with tambourine and lyre? And why did you not permit me to kiss my sons and my daughters fare well. Now you have done foolishly. It is in my power to do you harm. But the God of your father spoke to me last night, saying, be careful not to say anything to Jacob, either good or bad. And now you have gone away because you longed greatly for your father's house. But why did you steal my gods? Jacob answered and said to Laban, because I was afraid, for I thought you would take your daughters from me by force. Anyone with whom you find your gods shall not live. In the presence of your kinsmen, point out what I have that is yours and take it. Now Jacob did not know that Rachel had stolen them. So Laban went into Jacob's tent and into Leah's tent and into the tent of the two female servants. But he did not find them. And he went out of Leah's tent and entered Rachel's tent. Now Rachel had taken the household gods and put them in the camel's saddle and sat on them. Laban felt all about the tent and did not find them. And he said to her father, and she said to her father, let not my Lord be angry that I cannot rise before you, for the weight of women is upon me. So he searched, but did not find the household gods. Then Jacob became angry and berated Laban. Jacob said to Laban, what is my offense? What is my sin that you have hotly pursued me? For you have felt through all my goods. What have you found of all your household goods? Set it here before my kinsmen and your kinsmen, that they may decide between us two. These 20 years I have been with you. Your ewes and your female goats have not miscarried. I have not eaten the rams of your flocks. What was torn by wild beasts, I did not bring to you. I bore the loss of it myself, for my hand required it, whether stolen by day or stolen by night. There I was. By day, the heat consumed me, and the cold by night, and my sleep fled from my eyes. These 20 years I have been in your house. I have served you 14 years for your 2 daughters and 6 years for your flock. And you have changed my wages 10 times. If the God of my father, the God of Abraham, and the fear of Isaac had not been on my side, surely now you would have sent me away empty-handed. God saw my affliction and the labor of my hands and rebuked you last night. Then Laban answered and said to Jacob, the daughters are my daughters. The children are my children. The flocks are my flocks. And all that you see is mine. But what can I do this day for these my daughters, or for their children whom they have borne? Come now, let us make a covenant, you and I, and let it be a witness between you and me. So Jacob took a stone and set it up as a pillar. And Jacob said to his kinsmen, gather stones. And they took stones and made a heap, and they ate there by the heap. Laban called it Jagar Sahadutha, but Jacob called it Gilead. Laban said, this heap is a witness between you and me today. Therefore, he named it Gilead. And Mizpah, for he said, the Lord watch between you and me when we are out of one another's sight. If you oppress my daughters, or if you take the wives besides my daughters, although no one is with us, see, God is witness between you and me. Then Laban said to Jacob, see this heap and the pillar which I have set between you and me? This heap is a witness, and the pillar is a witness, that I will not pass over this heap to you, and you will not pass over this heap and this pillar to me to do harm. The God of Abraham, the God of Nahar, the God of their father, judge between us. So Jacob swore by the fear of his father Isaac. And Jacob offered a sacrifice in the hill country and called his kinsmen to eat bread. They ate bread and spent the night in the hill country. Early in the morning, Laban arose and kissed his children and his daughters and blessed them. Then Laban departed and returned home. Jacob went on his way, and the angels of God met him. And when Jacob saw them, he said, "This is God's camp." So he called the name of that place Mahanaim. And Jacob sent messengers before him to Esau his brother in the land of Seir, the country of Edom, instructing them, "Thus you should say to my lord Esau, thus says your servant Jacob, I have sojourned with Laban and stayed until now. I have oxen, donkeys, flocks, male servants and female servants. I have sent to tell my lord in order that I may find favor in your sight." And the messengers returned to Jacob, saying, "We came to your brother Esau, and he is coming to meet you, and there are 400 men with him." And Jacob was greatly afraid and distressed. He divided the people who were with him, the flocks and herds and camels, into two camps, thinking, if Esau comes to one camp and attacks it, then the camp that is left will escape. And Jacob said, "O God of my father Abraham and God of my father Isaac, O Lord, who said to me, return to your country and to your kindred, that I may do good. I am not worthy of the least of all the deeds of steadfast love and all the faithfulness that you have shown to your servant. For with only my staff I crossed this Jordan, and now I have become two camps. Please deliver me from the hand of my brother, from the hand of Esau, for I fear him, that he may come and attack me, the mothers with the children." But you said, "I will surely do you good and make your offspring as the sand of the sea, which cannot be numbered for multitude." So he stayed there that night, and from what he had with him, he took a present for his brother Esau, 200 female goats and 20 male goats, 200 ewes and 20 rams, 30 milking camels and their calves, 40 cows and 10 bulls, 20 female donkeys and 10 male donkeys. These he handed over to his servants. He drove by every drove by itself, and said to his servants, "Pass on ahead of me and put a space between drove and drove." He instructed the first, "When Esau, my brother, meets you and asks you, 'To whom do you belong? Where are you going? And whose are these ahead of you?' Then you shall say, 'They belong to your servant Jacob. They are a present to my lord Esau. And moreover, he is behind us." He likewise instructed the second and third, and all who followed the droves. "You shall say the same thing to Esau when you find him, and you shall say, moreover, your servant Jacob is behind us." For he thought, "I may appease him with the present that goes ahead of me, and afterward I shall see his face. Perhaps he will accept me." So the present passed on ahead of him, and he himself stayed that night in the camp. The same night he arose and took his two wives, his two female servants, and his 11 children, and crossed the ford of the Jabbok. He took them and sent them across the stream, and everything else that he had. And Jacob was left alone. A man wrestled with him until the breaking of the day. When the man saw that he did not prevail against Jacob, he touched his hip socket, and Jacob's hip was put out of joint as he wrestled with him. Then he said, "Let me go, for the day has broken." But Jacob said, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." And he said to him, "What is your name?" And he said, "Jacob." Then he said, "Your name should no longer be Jacob, but Israel, for you have striven with God and with men and have prevailed." Then Jacob asked him, "Please tell me your name." But he said, "Why is it that you ask my name?" And there he blessed him. So Jacob called the name of that place Peniel, saying, For I have seen God face to face, and yet my face has been delivered. The sun rose upon him as he passed Peniel, limping because of his hip. Therefore, to this day, the people of Israel do not eat the sinew of the thigh that is on the hip socket, because he touched the socket of Jacob's hip on the sinew of the thigh. And Jacob lifted up his eyes and looked, and behold, Esau was coming, and 400 men with him. So he divided the children among Leah and Rachel and the two female slaves. And he put the servants with their children in front, then Leah with their children, and Rachel and Joseph last of all. He himself went on before them, bowing himself to the ground 7 times until he came near to his brother. But Esau ran to meet him and embraced him and fell on his neck and kissed him, and they wept. And when Esau lifted up his eyes and saw the women and children, he said, Who are these with you, Jacob? Who are these with you? Jacob said, The children whom God has graciously given your servant. And the servants drew near, they and their children, and bowed down. Leah likewise, and her children drew near and bowed down. And last, Joseph and Rachel drew near and bowed down. Esau said, What do you mean by all this company that I met? Jacob answered, To find favor in the sight of my Lord. But Esau said, I have enough, my brother. Keep what you have for yourself. Jacob said, No, please, if I have found favor in your sight, then accept my present from my hand. For I have seen your face, which is like seeing the face of God, and you have accepted me. Please accept my blessing that is brought to you, because God has dealt graciously with me, and because I have enough. Thus he urged him, and he took it. Then Esau said, Let us journey on our way, and I will go ahead of you. But Jacob said to him, My Lord knows that the children are frail, and that the nursing flocks and herds are a care to me. If they are driven hard for one day, all the flocks will die. Let my Lord pass on ahead of his servant, and I will lead on slowly, at the pace of the livestock that are ahead of me, and at the pace of the children, until I come to my Lord in Seir. So Esau said, Let me leave you with some of the people who are with me. But he said, What need is there? Let me find favor in the sight of my Lord. So Esau returned that day on his way to Seir. But Jacob journeyed to Succoth and built himself a house and made booths for his livestock. Therefore, the name of the place is called Succoth. And Jacob came safely to the city of Shechem, which is the land of Canaan, on his way from Padan Aram. And he camped before the city, and from the sons of Hamor, Shechem's father, he brought for 100 pieces of money the pieces of land on which he had pitched his tent. There he erected an altar and called it El Elohe Israel. This is the word of the Lord. Okay, so some great stuff. I did want to read this note at the end of chapter 30 that led into chapter 31 about Jacob's his preparing to return to Canaan. We read this last time, but this kind of reorients us. Having completed 14 years of service to Laban, Jacob looks to return to his family in Canaan. Laban, however, is reluctant to lose Jacob's services, which has brought him considerable wealth. The events narrated in this section illustrate how God's blessing is mediated through Jacob, but only to those who bless him. By mistreating Jacob, Laban is eventually disadvantaged. All right. Let's get this up here. All right. Chapter 31, verses 1 to 3. Jacob's growing wealth becomes a source of friction within Laban's family. Verse 1. Even Laban's own attitude toward Jacob changes. Verse 2. Against this background, the Lord instructs Jacob to return to Canaan. All right. So this is not the first time we've seen a growth in wealth become friction between two parties. We saw this with Lot and Abram at one point, right? And then they go their ways, right? And so we see Jacob's wealth grow, and there's a source of friction between him and Laban. Here, there's no agreement on the two parties departing, but Jacob leaves on his own at the instruction of God, right? And so we have that. So we have another, pattern emerging, right? Where X and X are alike in one way, but they're still somewhat different. And then we see a Y and a Y. A Y happens on the first one, the Y being the departure. There's an agreement of the departure. Here, Y, there's a departure, but there's no agreement upon the departure. There's just a leaving, right? And so then we'll see what happens next. Chapter 31, verses 4 to 13. In a long speech, Jacob explains to Rachel and Leah his reasons for returning to his homeland. In doing so, he contrasts the actions of their father with the God of his father. Your father does not regard me with favor, as he did before, but the God of my father is with me. Verse 5. While Laban has exploited Jacob for his own advantage, God has consistently worked against Laban's schemes. God of Bethel, verse 13. At Bethel, God had promised to be with Jacob, verse 28, 15. Or sorry, chapter 28, verse 15. Some 20 years later, Jacob acknowledges God's faithfulness, chapter 31, verse 5. God now instructs Jacob to return to the land of his kindred. Right. And this is very much, let me go back to chapter 31. And my apologies. I forgot or didn't realize until after I started reading that I had the verse numbers up. So I'll try to remember next time to make sure I don't have the verse numbers up so we can get a clean view of just the text itself. But let's see. This line here from God, the Lord said to Jacob, chapter 31, verse 3, return to the land of your fathers and your kindred, and I will be with you. This echoes what we see. So let's see, chapter 12, verses 1 to 3, and then chapter 31, verses 1 to 3. So this echoes what God told Abram in chapter 12. He says, go from your country and your kindred and your father's house to the land I will show you, and I will make of you a great nation. I will bless you and make your name great so that you will be a blessing. I will bless those who bless you, and him who dishonors you, I will curse. And in you, all the families of the earth will be blessed. Right. So that's this full grand blessing to Abram. Right. But go from your country. Right. The country that he's in at that time. Right. Is Padan Aram in Mesopotamia, in Haran. And likewise, he is telling Jacob to leave as well from Padan Aram and Haran to say, return to the land of your fathers and your kindred. Here, go from your country, your kindred, and your father's house. Right? So here, God is taking him away. God is taking Abram away from his family and his father's house to an unknown land. And then here he is telling Jacob to return to the land that he once knew, back to his father and his kindred. Right. So there's like a full circle going on, right? And instead of this grand blessing here, he just says, I will be with you. Right? Let's go back to 31 to 33. Right. And then here, this section from chapter 4 to chapter 4 to 13, there's this reiteration from Jacob about what was said to him by God, right? So we get a fuller picture of what God said to him. Yeah, I'm trying to see. I can't remember. Okay, I was trying to see if he reiterated the blessing here, but it doesn't look like it. I couldn't remember whether he did or not. All right, chapter 31, verses 14 to 16. In their response, Rachel and Leah also contrast their father's actions with those of God. Cross-reference note on chapter 31, verses 4 to 13, one we just read. Whereas the former has in practice disinherited them, verses 14 to 15, God has provided for them and their children, verse 16. All right? So they see, hey, our father, who's supposed to care for us, has not yet. The God of your fathers has. And so now they show where their allegiance lies because of it. Chapter 31, verses 19 to 55, Laban accuses Jacob in Gilead. Fearful that Laban will prevent him from leaving Padan Aram, Jacob escapes when his father-in-law is away shearing sheep. When Laban discovers what has happened, he pursues Jacob, catching up with him in Gilead. Accusation and counter-accusation eventually result in the making of a treaty that guarantees protection to both parties. Chapter 31, verse 19. Rachel stole her father's household gods. Household gods translates the Hebrew word terapim. In spite of their being mentioned quite often in the Bible, knowledge of these objects is vague. The term often being translated as images/idols. In this instance, since Laban later refers to them as gods in verse 30, they may have been small figurines depicting particular gods. The narrator does not explain why Rachel took her father's gods. Perhaps she believed that this would prevent him from using their power to overcome Jacob. Possibly, she thought that they would bring her good fortune. Maybe she wanted them only for their inherent value, given that they may have been made of costly metal. Whatever the reason, it later becomes evident that Jacob had no knowledge of their misappropriation. Verse 32. And I think this is very interesting to see what Rachel and Leah say in verses 14 to 16, and then to see her go back for the household gods. Right. So then Rachel and Leah answered. Right. It's interesting they put Rachel first. Right, because Leah is the oldest one, but they put Rachel first. Right. And then even alphabetically, L comes before R. But Rachel's put first. Rachel and Leah answered and said to him, is there any portion or inheritance left to us in our father's house? Are we not regarded by him as foreigners? For he has sold us, and he has indeed devoured our money. All the wealth that God has taken away from our father belongs to us and our children. Now then, whatever God has said to you, do. All right. So there's an acknowledgement of a trust in God. However, though there's an acknowledgement of a trust in God, she still goes and takes her father's household goods or household gods. And so to to me here, I do think that there is a picture trying to be portrayed here, because even before this, we saw uh, a progressive understanding of who God was and faith amongst both Leah and Rachel, right? We see their naming of their sons, right? Where uh, Leah progressively, she starts naming her sons in response to, hey, uh, now my husband will see me, now he will notice me, now he'll finally love me. Hey, now I'm going to praise God, right? Um, and then we see as Rachel names Joseph, um, she names him, Lord, add another child to me, right? And so, there's a not quite full faith there yet, at least amongst Rachel, where Leah um, begins to have much more uh, faith going on. Actually, let's look at. Let's look at. Give me 1 second. Let me see where. Uh, 729. Okay, let's go to 29. Whoop. 29, 33. Okay, and let's go to verse 31, 29. Okay, Leah conceived and bore a son, and she called his name Reuben. She said, because the Lord has looked upon my affliction, for now my husband will love me. She conceived again and bore a son and said, because the Lord has heard that I am hated, he has given me a son also. She called his name Simeon. Again, she conceived and bore a son. Now this time my husband will be attached to me because I have borne him 3 sons, right? So pretty much all the names have to deal with either her circumstance or her husband, right? And then finally, and she conceived again and bore a son. This time I will praise the Lord, right? Name him Judah. Okay. So we see this progressive increase in faith, right? Then we see Rachel name the sons that Bilhah bore, right? And so she says, God has judged me and has also heard my voice and given me a son, right? So this was about God, but still about her circumstance, right? Hey, I've been judged by God, but yet, he's heard me, give me a son. All right, cool. Then with mighty wrestling, so the next son, with mighty wrestlings, I have wrestled with my sister and have prevailed. So now it goes back to her circumstance, right? Nothing to do with God, back to her circumstance. All right, so call some next Sally. Leah then names the children bore by Zilpah, her servant. Good fortune has come. All right, so could still be this could be a praise, right? Doesn't quite necessarily name the Lord, but more of a praise going on, right? And then Leah said, "Happy am I, for women have called me happy." Right. So now it's kind of gets back to others, right? No mention of God, but so we have there, right? Then she has her final son. God has given me my wages because I gave my servant to my husband. All right. So here it gets back to bringing her husband involved. All right. But at least there's acknowledgement of God in this naming. All right. And then her 6th son, She says, God has endowed me with good endowment. Now my husband will honor me because I have borne him 6 sons. And so now, so she has kind of reverse. So she goes up and then back down. So she goes up to her acknowledgement of God and then comes back down. And now her thoughts are back on her husband, right? Then she has Dinah, and we don't get any information about where her name comes from, right? But then Rachel finally is able to bear a son. She says, God has taken away my reproach. Called his name Jacob, saying, may the Lord add to me another son, right? So again, there's not necessarily praise for God, but hey, he's done this, but give me another, right? And so there's some iffiness going on with their faith. It's not quite as strong, and this could be a reflection of Joseph himself, right? Who we have seen has a if faith at all, a very immature faith, and so that could be reflected within his household, and so that probably is what has led Rachel to, as they were leaving, for her to, at least the way that I'm reading it, even though I know the ESV Study Bible says that there are many different ways to read it, we don't quite know. To me, I feel like it's placing the picture on that there might be still some immaturity and faith involved amongst this family, right? And so, so that's how I'm reading it. As the ESV Study Bible said, there's no clear showing of that in the text, but that's how I'm reading. You can see it differently. If you do, go ahead and put it in the comments, and we'll see there. Okay. All right. Chapter 31, verse 20. Jacob tricked Laban. The Hebrew idiom translated here is tricked. Is literally stole the heart. ESV footnote. The repetition of the verb still in verses 19 to 20 highlights one of the important themes of this passage. Although Jacob takes only what rightly belongs to him, Laban later accuses him of having stolen everything that is his now in his possession. All right. So, okay. Well, here, based on this note, maybe we might be reading maybe a little bit too much into Rachel stealing the gods instead of just following the theme here, right? Rachel steals, right? And there's the play on the theft that Jacob is doing, right? There's a misunderstanding amongst the two of what belongs to who, right? From the livestock to even his children, because you see later on that Laban calls them his children, right? Hey, my daughters and my sons, right? And so you have that there, right? So there's kind of the wordplay, right? Of theft going on, right? So maybe this is also too trying to get into like the picture of payback, right? Laban stole years from Jacob. Now Jacob is stealing them back, right? So hey, Laban, you stole years from me. Now I'm going to steal your stuff from you, right? Maybe that's going on in the text. Chapter 31, verse 21. Hill country of Gilead. The region lies to the east of the Jordan River, several hundred miles south of Padan Aram. I think. Let's see. Trying to see here. So we have a little map here. If you're not looking at the screen, so I went a few pages ahead to try to view the map. that we have. It's a map, and it has a little description here to the side called Jacob's return to Canaan. Right, so circa 1976 to or 1810 BC. Right, depending on how we're dating things. Right, we're still between this 1900 1800 timeline going on here. After acquiring wealth in Padan Aram, Jacob returned to Canaan. He came to Mahanaim, where he sent his household ahead of him and crossed the Jabbok alone. There he wrestled with a mysterious man until morning and named the place Peniel, also called Penuel. Jacob then encountered his brother Esau, who had come from Edom to meet him. After the two were reconciled, Esau returned to Edom while Jacob journeyed to Canaan. All right. And so we get Jacob's return from Padan Aram. All right. So I'm following the cursor. So he starts up here to the east, comes down, and comes across Peniel, across Succoth to Shechem, right? And we looked at this because we were trying to see. Okay, yeah. So Succoth, right? They're saying is right east of the Jordan River. Okay, and for those of you who are familiar with the story of the later in the story of the Israelites, there is a crossing of the Jordan River into the land of Canaan. I am unsure if this is what they're talking about. Like this is the place, but it could be. I'm unsure. But that just it came to my mind, the Jordan River, right? So I'm like, hey, is this a precursor to their crossing of the Jordan River into the land of Canaan? So this is a precursor to the later crossing of the Jordan River that happens, right? So that's why I brought it up, because I just thought about that. But so if you're not looking at the map, Succoth here, east of the Jordan River, slightly east of the Jordan River, and kind of smack dab in between the Sea of Galilee and the Dead Sea. So the Sea of Galilee to the north, the Dead Sea to the south, kind of smack dab in the middle. The Jordan River flows. It looks like it flows from the Sea of Galilee down to the Dead Sea, and then smack dab in the middle between those two, to the east of the Jordan River, is Succoth, where it looks like that's where Jacob is. Right. Oh, it talked about the hill country of Galilee. Sorry, the hill country. Sorry, the hill country of Gilead. Sorry, that's what we're looking for. Yeah. So the hill country of Gilead is east of the Jordan River. You see here on the map, there's kind of like maybe some mountain ranges or a few hills here. And then just south of that, though, Succoth, Penuel, Mahanaim, all that little region. Okay. All right. Let's get back to the notes here. Okay. Chapter 31, verse 22 to 24. Laban catches up with Jacob about 10 days after his initial departure. By this stage, Jacob, with his family and livestock, has reached Gilead. All right. So, Laban's coming to get what he thought was stolen from him. And he catches up, right? So, and we talked before with the ESV Study Bible notes about the speed of travel with one person versus having a family and livestock. So Jacob with his family and livestock are probably traveling at a very, very, very slow pace. And Laban's able to catch up with them, even though Jacob had a few days head start. Chapter 31, verse 26 to 30. Laban seeks to portray Jacob in a poor light by contrasting his secretive flight with Laban's desire to have a joyful send-off. I mean, didn't this just feel slimy when he's saying this? Right? Verse 26. What have you done that you have tricked me and driven away my daughters like captives of the sword? And I'm just thinking, I know Jacob is hearing this saying, tricked you? Tricked you? Isn't this the pot calling the kettle black? Tricked you? Why did you flee secretly and trick me? Here we go again. This trick me stuff. Right? Is this trick my ride? Is that what he's doing? Trick my camel, Why'd you trick me? Did not tell me so that I might have sent you away with mirth and songs and a tambourine and lyre. Like, man, would you get out of here with this stuff? Goodness gracious. I would have done a lot of stuff for you, man. Why you left me like that? I would have threw a party for you and all that. Why you do me like that, dog? Why you do me like that? Look at this fool. And why did you not permit me to kiss my sons and my daughters farewell? Now you have done foolishly. This fool, man. Goodness gracious. The God of your father, verse 29. Although Laban acknowledges that God has spoken to him, verse 24, he refuses to acknowledge God as his own. He is the God of Isaac. To underline this point, Laban asked Jacob, why did you steal my gods? Right? So, this is, I believe, the second time we hear God speak to somebody that is not of the covenant family. Right? So we saw him speak to Abimelech before dealing with Abraham and Sarah while they were there in their land. But now we see him speak to Laban. Right? So it says, verse 24, but God came to Laban, the Aramean, in a dream by night and said to him, be careful not to say anything to Jacob, either good or bad. Right? And then we see later that Laban actually obeys. Right? And even though Laban has an encounter with the power of God, so much so that that he ends up obeying God, right? He still does not have faith in God. He doesn't want to follow him. He doesn't want to say that that he is his God, right? Or that he is God's, right? He has an encounter with God, but that doesn't necessarily change his mind about who God is and what his relationship with God is, right? Which kind of goes back to, and again, I've talked about this idea of parallel stories, maybe kind of bringing clarity to previous stories. So here, this is the second time that God speaks to somebody outside of the covenant family, right? And so beforehand, the ESV Study Bible notes said that God's encounter with Abimelech and the servants there showed that they actually feared God, right? That they had a faith in God, where I was unconvinced, right? And I think here we see Laban also too has an encounter with God and has a fear in a sense of like he sees enough of the power of God that he's going to obey him. Well, and he really actually didn't even obey him. So be careful not to say anything to Jacob, either good or bad, right? So he doesn't even want Laban to talk to him, right? But Laban says, let me not get it cut off here. So This is verse 29. So 31, verse 29. It is in my power to do you harm, but the God of your father spoke to me last night, saying, be careful not to say anything to Jacob, good or bad. And now he have gone away because you longed greatly for your father's house. Why did you steal my gods? Right. So he acknowledges what God said to him, right? Um, and he says, hey, I'm not going to do you harm because God said not to. But, if we take these words literally, God is saying, hey, don't even talk to him. Don't say anything good to him. Don't say anything bad to him, right? Don't give him a blessing. Don't give him a curse. Don't say anything to him. Now, this could be an idiom, a phrase. Don't say anything to him, either good or bad, meaning don't do them harm, right? At least that's how Laban is saying that he's interpreting it. But if we just read it as it reads in plain English, hey, don't say anything to him, right? So we can see, even though there's an encounter with God that Jacob has, there's no faith. So, I know that some of you listening, let me not go there yet. I'll just say this. Oftentimes, or sometimes, there is a focus within some arenas of American Christianity, right? There is a hyper focus on having an experience with God, right? And we'll see, this is not the only time this happens, but we'll see a few different times where people have an experience with God, yet do not come to faith. And here, Laban has an experience with God, clearly does not come to faith. Maybe even looking at this, maybe there could be an argument for Abimelech, right? On either side. But here, Laban clearly has an experience with God, does not come to faith, right? And if we are remembering Jesus' teaching on the parable of the sower, right? There are some who hear God's word, have an experience with God, but for many reasons fall away. Right? So the experience alone is not what we're after. Okay. The experience may be a step on the journey to faith, on a journey to having a full-blown relationship with the Lord. However, the experience by itself is not enough. Okay. And we will see that repeatedly, where people have an experience with the Lord and yet do not come to faith. Right? Or they choose something above him. And here, Laban is choosing his household gods, right? And not saying that this is my God as well, right? And later, we hear him say yes. Hold on. We hear him. This is Laban talking. Yeah. Laban says, "The God of Abraham, the God of Nahor, the God of their father, just between us." Nowhere does he say, "My God," right? Hey, the God of your grandfather, the God of my grandfather, the God of both of our grandfathers, or the God of our great great grandfather. Their God will judge us. So he still takes no ownership, even though there's been a relationship with God, Yahweh, uh, within his own household, and yet he has other guys that he's submitting to. Okay. All right. Chapter 31, verse 26, Laban falsely charges Jacob with having forced his daughters to go with him. But Rachel and Leah had willingly agreed to accompany their husband. Yep, exactly. I would say, watch for that as you read, right, and start to, I would say, start to really engage with the story as you read and really engage with the Bible, outside of this, right? Pay attention to those little things where there is an accusation from someone, okay, which leads more to their lack of credibility, because we as an audience know, because we've been told by either of the characters or the narrator certain things that speak against what this one character has said, right? Because we have information that they don't have, right? And so that plays a part in how they're are trying to paint the picture around a specific character. Right? Chapter 31, verse 35. To prevent Laban from having access to the camel saddle where his gods are hidden, Rachel tells her father that the weight of women is upon her. This refers to a woman's regular menstrual discharge. Although Laban has accused Jacob of deception, his own daughter is the principal culprit. The picture of Rachel sitting on and concealing Laban's gods emphasizes the total impotence of such idols. Okay. I think there is so much here, and there is something that I want to say about this episode. However, maybe in future years when we, if you guys, stick around and we study this, I'm going to say something about this episode. But I won't say it now. I'm urging to say something. But I remember the first time I brought this up to someone. I was in the first time I was actually reading the Bible in a year, and I was doing it with a group of people at church, and I put this in our group chat, and then one of the brothers that is much more seasoned and mature than me kind of pulled me aside. It was like, "Hey, bro, it's a little much right now for people who are just getting into the Bible." All right, so I want to make sure my ducks in a row before I pull that out. So just know that, hey, maybe there might be something here that I'm seeing that maybe in future years I'll bring to the forefront, right? Maybe try to add it to the conversation about how we understand Scripture, right? Chapter 31, verse 36 to 42. Jacob responds sharply to Laban's unproven accusation of theft by recounting the scrupulous manner in which he cared for Laban's herds. During 20 years of arduous labor, Jacob never once took advantage of Laban, even when the latter sought to mistreat him. This is great, because the first time we actually see him do anything that is deceitful is after the last time that Laban deceives him, after they agreed on which livestock he would take, and so he makes a defense of himself. Hey, now, what are we talking about here, right? Tell me what I've done. What is my offense? What is my sin? That you have hotly pursued me. You have felt through all my goods. What have you found in all of all your household goods? You made these accusations. Where the goods at? Set it here before my kinsmen and your kinsmen, that they may decide between us two. Hey, you know what? I'm not even going to judge. Have your people tell us who's right. Have them judge between us. What you got? What you got, Laban? You've done the searching. What you got? You have nothing. Hands are empty. These 20 years I have been with you. Your ewes, your female goats have not miscarried, and I have not eaten the rams of your flock. You would tell me if I did, but no. What was torn by the wild beasts, I did not bring to you. I bore the loss of it myself. From my hand, you required it, whether stolen by day or by night. Hey, I've done my part. There was I by day, the heat consumed me, the cold by night, and my sleep fled from my eyes. These 20 years I have been in your house. I served you 14 years for your 2 daughters, and 6 years for your flock. And you have changed my wages 10 times. Come on, man. What have I done to you? Nothing. Get out my face with all this. That's what he's telling me. Get out my face. I've done nothing to you. Chapter 31, verse 42. The God of Abraham in the fear of Isaac. The term fear has a metonym. As a metonym, is clearly a substitute for God, possibly since Isaac treated God with reverential fear. God could be designated as the one feared or the fear of Isaac. Another possibility is the idea that Isaac's God induced fear in others. See, for example, the reaction of Abimelech, chapter 26, verses 10 to 11, and chapters 28 to 29. I think this is when Isaac was having a lot of success, and so he sent Isaac away. And then he came back to Isaac and wanted to make a covenant with him because Isaac had gotten very powerful and was still living among them. So I think that's what they're talking about. Yeah, but I've always found that interesting. I've never read this note from the ESV Study Bible, so that's pretty cool here to see how they're understanding the fear of Isaac. Chapter 31, verses 43 to 44. In spite of Jacob's observations, Laban continues to claim ownership of everything that Jacob has taken. Verse 43, right? So Jacob goes on this tirade, this great grand defense. I mean, goodness, you know, it's grand defense. Hey, you know, if the glove don't fit, Laban, you must have quit. What's up? Laban's not buying it. He's like, hey, now, Jacob, pipe down. The daughters are my daughters. The children are my children. The flocks are my flocks. And all that you see is mine. But what can I do this day for these, my daughters, or for their children whom they have born? Right? No. Hey, Jacob, you know, all this you're talking about. No. All this is still mine. All that you see is still mine. Right? All that you see is still mine, it says. So it's still lack of agreement. Then, in a gesture possibly intended to save face, Laban invites Jacob to make a covenant or treaty with him, verse 44. The pretext for the treaty is Laban's supposed desire to protect the future of his daughters and grandchildren, right? And I think here we have another, there's something in the text to help us despise Laban even more. This come now, let us make a covenant. Let me see some shade. Trying to see what they are. G H J. Okay. want to see something real quick. Thank you guys for that. Yeah. So yeah. So this come let us, right? So the first time we get let us is in chapter 126, or chapter 1, verse 26, right? Where God says, let us make man in our image, right? And then the next time we see it is at the Tower of Babel, right? And uh, so we get this, come let us, right? Come let us, right? And so whenever humans use it, hey, something bad is about to happen, right? So Tower of Babel, come let us make bricks, right? They're trying to build a city. And then it said, come let us build ourselves a city and a tower. Let us make a name for ourselves, right? God takes the language back, come let us go down. And they're confused their language, right? So you have humans trying to use the language of God. God takes his language back, and he goes and shows his power and disperses the humans, right? But then the next time we see this phrase, come let us make our father drink wine, and we will lie with him, that we may preserve offspring from our father, right? And this is Lot's daughters, right? And they have this perverse act with their father, right, leading to their children, right? So no bueno. And then we see Laban here using it. Come now, let us make a covenant, you and I, right? And so it's like, hey, Laban, we already don't like you, and now we have become even more disgusted with you because you're using the language of people who do bad things, right? Um, and then later we'll see this language. For those of you who are watching, who are looking at the screen, probably reading and like, oh, hey, I know the story coming up. So we'll wait to get to that the next few days. The next time it's used in Genesis. All right. So we have the come let us language. All right. Chapter 31, verse 45 to 46. The two separate witnesses are set up, one by Jacob and the other by his kinsman. Jacob uses a stone to create a pillar, verse 45, similar to what he did earlier at Bethel, chapter 28, verses 18 to 22. His kinsmen pile up stones to form a heap, chapter 31, verse 46. The creation of two witnesses may have been intended to underline the seriousness of the oath. More likely, the two witnesses reflect in some way the deities worshipped by Jacob and Laban. Jacob's single stone stands in marked contrast to the heap of stones set up by Laban and his relatives. Jacob's monotheistic faith is set alongside the polytheism of Laban. Since ancient Near Eastern treaties normally involved the gods as witnesses, the treaty between Jacob and Laban also required divine witnesses. Because Jacob is not prepared to compromise his monotheistic faith, two witnesses are established. All right. I mean, it's pretty. I mean, just like last time, we talked about the different notes on from the ESV Study Bible to give us this cultural background. Again, I mean, this is the price of admission. Again, how often, reading this, will we be able to even see this detail? Right? Hey, it's for us. They're piling stones, man. I mean, that's all we see. They're piling stones. Okay, we're not even giving any care, right? However, in the original audience would know and understand what these two different piles meant, right? And that helps to bring more color and flavor to the story so that we can start to see things that we didn't see before. It's very great stuff, man. Very great stuff. Chapter 31, verses 47 to 49. The Aramaic expression, Jagar Sahadutha, and the Hebrew term, Galeed, both mean witness heap. Mizpah, meaning watchtower, became the name of a settlement north of the Jabbok River. It was the hometown of Jephthah. See Judges chapter 11, verse 11. The name Mizpah was also given to an important city located on the boundary between Israel and Judah, 8 miles northwest of Jerusalem. See Judges chapter 20. This is pretty cool, and hopefully, as I've stated before, hopefully, as we're reading, I remember these names. Maybe the ESV Study Bible, as we go along in our study, will bring we'll make a note about where the names of these places come from, or where we have seen them before. Just because, as you can see, even by the stones, the pillar thing, that it brings more flavor to the story, right? Where there's a remembrance, right? That hey, this thing happened, and then this thing happened, and this thing happened, but this happened at this place, or not. Oh, once there was a story where this happened at this place, and now here's another story about what happened at this place, and it's kind of like, but not like that story, or maybe bring some flavor to that story, or maybe there's something that happens at this place, and then we have something else that happens, and there's a huge contrast to the story, right? Like, man, how could this happen there, and then this happened here? All right. So, yeah, very interesting. Sometimes it happens in our history, and I'm kind of blanking right now on major events, but like sometimes how you know, uh, I don't know. We look through American history and we see, hey, we know things about Boston Tea Party, or things happen in Philadelphia, whatnot, and you know, and the next time something major happens there, like, oh man, isn't this cool, that connection, right? Or maybe even something like happens in the South, right? So you had slavery, and then the Civil War. You had civil rights movement stuff. Major things happen in the South, Birmingham, whatnot. Da, da, da. And then whenever there is a major event, or maybe you know depending on the thoughts of certain things, but maybe there's a something that happens, maybe in Birmingham, or in Atlanta, or something like that, and um, you know you're showing a contrast, right? Hey, at one point, this is what things were like at this place, and now this is what things are like at this place, right? Whether good or bad, right? And so sometimes you get different um, locations where things used to be great, right, in one place, okay, where it was hey, oh man, this was the town, or the part of town where this was the happening spot, right? And all the businesses were here, and and now it's run down, right? Or man, hey, this used to be the rundown part of town, and now this is, And so to see those contrasts, it helps to provide flavor to the story. And so uh, whatever story's been told at the time, and um, and so the same thing happens here in the Bible as well. Okay. La, da, da, da. Okay. Chapter 32, verse 21, verses 1 to 21. Jacob prepares to meet Esau again. All right, hey man, big deal. Last time Jacob was around Esau, Esau was like, hey man, I'm about to take your head off. After separating peacefully from Laban, Jacob prepares to meet his estranged brother Esau. Jacob is naturally hesitant about how he will be received some 20 years after fleeing from Esau in order to avoid being killed by him. Jacob's preparations are intended to promote a peaceful reconciliation. Chapter 31, verses 1 to 2. These two verses provide an interesting, if somewhat enigmatic, interlude between Jacob's encounters with Laban and Esau. The reference to the angels of God, verse 1, is reminiscent of Jacob's dream at Bethel, chapter 28, verse 12. The only other place in the whole of the Old Testament where the same expression is used, so that's the only other place in the Old Testament where the same expression is used. Chapter 28, verse 12. Right, the angels of God. Similarly, Jacob's observation, this is God's camp, chapter 31 or 32, verse 2, parallels his previous comment about Bethel's being the house of God, chapter 28, verse 17. Since camps were immobile, unlike houses, Jacob's remark suggests that God has sent his angels to accompany Jacob safely back to the land of Canaan. Oh, I mean, come on, man. Come on. This is awesome. So here, Jacob, there's growth in his faith, right? But before, when he set up a pillar in chapter 28, right? It was much more reminiscent of Canaanite worship. Now, after 20 years, he stands on business of at least when I set up this pillar, it's going to be in contrast to the many pillars of Laban. Well, hey, at least, hey, I know I'm only with the one true God. You can have all your little ones over there. I'm standing with the one true God, right? And then here he recognizes that, hey, God is with me. He has a host of angels around me. Okay, right? So there's a growth in faith, right? There's a growth in faith. But we'll get to see. But I want to see what the notes are here to see if they are seeing the story the same way I am. Maybe they might bring some light to me. Right? Mahanaim, chapter 32, verse 2 means two camps, possibly alluding to God's camp and Jacob's camp. The motif of two camps reappears in verses 7 to 10. Man, again, I'm going to link the book, The Art of Biblical Literature, I think that's what it's called, by Robert Alter, because he talks about and I haven't, man, that might be one that I might do a reading of that on here as well, because I need to go through that through that whole book and deeply, but I've kind of skimmed through it, but yeah. He talks about these different pictures and motifs that keep the story going and different things that are happening within the text, right? So we get Jacob here naming a city two camps. Then there's another motif of him having his two camps, right? And there are certain things that are happening within the text that we don't see that are happening in Hebrew that are kind of some pretty cool things, right? And so the ESV Study Bible is kind of trying to bring it out for us, right? Chapter 32, verses 3 to 5. Jacob sent messengers before him. The Hebrew term for messengers, malach, denotes angels. In verse 1, in the land of Seir, the country of Edom, this region lies to the east of Canaan in Transjordan. According to chapter 36, verses 6 to 8, Esau settled here after Jacob returned to Canaan. Esau was obviously drawn to this region before Jacob returned and may have already separated himself from his father Isaac. who is living in Mamre near Hebron. See chapter 35, verse 27. Verse 27. Seir, Hebrew Seir, recalls Heri, Hebrew Sahir, and Edom, Hebrew Edom. Recalls red, Hebrew Admoni, from chapter 25, verse 25. Give me 1 second here. Let's blow this up so we all can see. The tone of Jacob's message to Esau is very deferential, twice describing Esau as my Lord. Jacob wants to find favor, chapter 32, verse 5, in his brother's sight. See note on verse 18. Chapter 32, verse 6, 400 men with him. A force of this size suggests that Esau plans to attack Jacob. Genesis chapter 14 recounts how Abraham, with a force of 318 men, successfully went to battle against 4 kings. Right? So there's this setup that we have going here where, you know, in the text, they're trying to tell us that, hey, Esau come ready to stand on business. All right? Coming to make good on his promise. Chapter 32, verses 7 to 8, out of fear of Esau, Jacob divides his family and possessions into 2 camps. Verse 7. Jacob's actions, while understandable from a human perspective, reflect his inability to trust God fully for his protection. See, I'm glad they put this here, because though we've seen a progression in Jacob's faith, an increase in his faith, right? It's still not quite there. He's growing, but not quite there, right? And he's having moments of weakness, like Abraham. Okay? Abraham, too, we had a couple moments where, you know, you see him go up, and then, you know, there's a moment of, you know, faithful weakness, right? And here, right, even though God before had promised to get it, let's go back and look at it. Let's go back and look at it, right? Come on. All right, here we go. Genesis. Right? Lord said, return to the land of your fathers and to your kindred, and I will be with you. Okay? This is the promise. Okay? And then let's just read this to make sure I don't forget anything. Let me see, where we'll start. Okay. Think. Okay, here. The angel of the Lord, so verse 11, chapter 31, verse 11. The angel of the Lord said to me in a dream, Jacob. And I said, here I am. And he said, lift up your eyes and see all the goats that mate with the flock, and striped and spotted and mottled, for I have seen all that Laban is doing to you. I am the God of Bethel, where you anointed a pillar and made a vow to me. Now arise and go from this land and return to the land of your kindred. Right? So go from here, go to there. Return to the land of your fathers and to your kindred. I will be with you. Right? So here, if he has full trust and faith in God, he would know no matter what I do, good or bad or neutral, God is going to get me there. Right? God has said it's going to be done. It's going to be done. Okay? So I don't have to play this whole, hey, I'm going to do all these different things to try to make sure it happens, because I know God's going to make it happen. Right? Now, this is not me saying that we have license to do whatever we want to do, right? But to say that instead of trying to force things into happening, right, when there is confirmation about what God has said, right? When God has said something, he will do it. And as we have seen before, regardless, right, in his providence, in his sovereignty, he is going to work out things for his purposes. Okay, no matter how much we try to mess it up, he's going to do his stuff. Okay, and so here, if Jacob has full faith and trust, hey, I know what it looks like. It looks like my brother is coming here to kill me, to make good on his promise. However, God said that I'm going to make it. God said for me to return to my fathers and my kindred, and he said, I will be with you. So I'm making it back to that land, to my fathers, to my kindred. God's going to be with me. I can see that he has a camp of angels around me. So, hey, I'm going to be good. Yet, he fears Esau. Chapter 32, verses let me chapter 32, verse 7, 8. Let me just reread that note real quick just to make sure I read the whole thing. Out of fear of Esau, Jacob divides his family and possessions into two camps, verse 7. Jacob's actions, while understandable from a human perspective, reflect his inability to trust God fully for protection. The motif of two camps, however, has already been introduced in verses 1 to 2 with reference to God's protective presence, right? So he already, and this is where the pictures are coming in, right? So he acknowledges there's two camps. There's God camp and my camp, right? But then as he's going and getting closer to Esau, he now makes two camps. But he already had two camps, his camp and God's camp, right? He already acknowledged there are two camps already. But then he goes and makes his own two camps, right? So the picture is being shown there that there's not full trust in God, right? He already acknowledges, hey, there are two camps. Now, let me go ahead and do my own thing, right? How often do we do that, right? Hey, I know scripture has said about God having it, right? I've seen this before playing out in my life. I can recall, when I tried to add my own spice to God's seasoning, right? That I messed up the dish. However, here we go again. I'm being tested. And you know what? Let me add my own 2 cents. Right? Instead of, hey, I have full trust in God. Right? And really, what we can say is that the rest of the entire biblical narrative is about trusting God. In Genesis 3, the issue there was a lack of trust in God. Right? There was a sown distrust by the words of the serpent. Right? And from there has been a lack of full trust. From certain individuals, we get spurts of full trust, right? But then we see this, it's up and down nature of it, not fully there all the time, right? Until we get to, dare I say, the promised offspring in Genesis chapter 3, right? And then we see there what it means to fully trust God, right? But until then, from everybody, we just get this up and down nature, right? Yeah. All right, here we go. Chapter 32, verses 9 to 13, Jacob's prayer. Prompted by fear of Esau, expresses deep gratitude to God and a humble recognition that Jacob's is unworthy of God's steadfast love and faithfulness. This is great. Ironically, though, because God has prospered him so abundantly, Jacob is able to divide everything that he has into two camps. Genesis chapter 32, verse 10. Once again, the motif of two camps is picked up. See verses 1 and 2. O Lord, verse 9, This is the first time Jacob addresses God using his special name Yahweh, translated here Lord. Right, and we read the note back in 2:4 about the name Yahweh, the Tetragrammaton, the YHWH, the proper name for Yahweh, which we don't, the proper name for God, which we don't truly know how to say, but we've kind of transliterated into Yahweh. So, Lord, forgive us if we're saying it wrong. Make your offspring as the sand of the sea. Oh, okay. This is where he says it, right? So, chapter 32, verse 12. Genesis does not specify when this divine promise was made to Jacob. At Bethel, God speaks of Jacob's offspring being like the dust of the earth, chapter 28, verse 14. See chapter 13, verse 16. On the other occasion, God could have compared Jacob's descendants to the sand of the sea, for he uses this image in his oath to Abraham. See chapter 22, verse 17. Right? So, so we see he makes the promise to sorry about that. He makes the promise to Abraham, chapter 22, that his children will be like the sand of the sea, right? But we don't see actually in the text when God says that to Jacob. But at least Jacob understands this to be happening. And chapter 28, verse 13, we see him say to Jacob, I want to see this, chapter 13, we say verse 16. Let's see this. Let's see, chapter 13, let's go chapter 28. 13, verse 16. So speaking to Abram, after Lot has separated from him, God says, lift up your eyes and look from this place where you are, northward and southward and eastward and westward. For all the land that you see, I will give to you and to your offspring forever. I will make your offspring as the dust of the earth, so that if one can count the dust of the earth, your offspring also can be counted. Again, just note. And this, I have yet to, this is something that has dropped in my mind as we started doing the study. I have yet to hear or read of any biblical scholar making this connection. Maybe after this, I'll look it up, and if this comes up again, I'll have some information from a scholar that may have talked about this. But it's very interesting to me that the curse of the serpent was that. Let's go to chapter 3. Let's review that. On your belly shall you go, and dust shall you eat all the days of your life. And after that, humans continue. We'll come back to this. Throughout the book of Genesis, humans continue to be compared to dust. So even before that, right, the Lord God formed man out of dust, right? Dust you shall eat, right? For you are dust, and to dust you shall return. I'll make your offspring as dust of the earth. Abraham calls himself dust and ashes. Your offspring shall be like the dust of the earth, right? So, for me, I am wondering if that the curse itself is a foreshadowing of the spiritual warfare between Satan and man, right? Later in the New Testament, I believe it's Peter that says that Satan goes around like a roaring lion, seeking whom he can devour. So I don't know. Very interesting to me. So if you have some information on it, post it in the comments. But it's very interesting to me, man. All right, so let's see the. All right, so the promise I will make offspring as dust of the earth, and then verse 14: Your offspring shall be like the dust of the earth, and you shall spread abroad from to the east, to the west, to the west, to the east, and to the north, and to the south. Okay, so in every direction you should go, and in you all the families, and in you and your offspring shall all the families of the earth be blessed. Okay. All right, chapter 32, verses 13 to 21. To demonstrate his goodwill, Jacob sends Esau various droves of animals as a present. Chapter 32, verse 18. Your servant Jacob. So before this, so we see, hey, Jacob's trying to prime the pump, right? And send these gifts, try to get Esau on my side, right? Chapter 32, verse 18. Your servant Jacob, my Lord, Esau, right? Jacob's deferential attitude is noteworthy, given earlier statements about the older servant. Man, I was just thinking this as I was literally just thinking this as I'm reading the notes, right? And they're bringing it to our attention, right? And Jacob is reversing the order, right? So this is giving imagery back to Genesis 2 and 3. God has a set order going one way, man, woman, animal. And then in Genesis 3, we see the order reverse. Animal, woman, man, right? Things go wrong, right? So here, right, God makes a pronouncement of the older serving the younger, right? Here, Jacob trying to do his own thing, right? Makes himself the younger serving the older. Okay. Right. And he's speaking against two things, against God's statement to Rebecca, as she praised him and asked him, why they're, what's going on with the children inside of her. Right. And then Isaac's blessing, which speaks of Jacob's being Lord over his brother. Right. So before, in Genesis 2 and 3, we saw when the order got reversed, catastrophe happened. Right. Now, right, we see the order reverse, and we don't see catastrophe, right? And so maybe this is a surprise for us. Like, hey, why is there not catastrophe, right? Or maybe we can say we get the opposite of what we expect, right? So naturally, what we expect in chapters 2 and 3, right, we just expect the story to continue to go on, right? Hey, we get paradise, right? All things are good. We expect it to continue to go on, right? And then we go to reversal of our expectations when the order gets reversed. Here, we expect James going back home. He's going to meet Esau. Esau comes with his 400 men. Man, Esau coming for that head. Orders reverse. We don't get what we expected, right? Maybe that could be what's going on, okay? Chapter 32, verses 22 to 32. Jacob encounters God at Peniel. This passage records a nighttime encounter between God and Jacob. Jacob is transformed by his extraordinary meeting, which is remarked by the changing of his name from Jacob to Israel. Chapter 32, verse 22 to 23, ford of Jabbok. Jacob's journey has brought him to Jabbok River, which flows westward into the Jordan Valley, about 24 miles north of the Dead Sea. So let's go back to here. Whoa. What is what? What happened with that? Oh man. Let's see. Try this again. Man, you know what? Hmm. Let's try this. Try this again. All right, there we go. Sometimes you gotta restart and reset. Okay. The Jabbok River. Where might that be? Okay, here we go. Here we go. We got a little picture here. So yeah, so on our here we go, Jabbok River. Okay. So we got a little map here, back on the previous page. For those who are not listening, we're looking at the map and the Jabbok River right here, a little east of Mahanaim and Peniel. So here we go, the Jabbok River. And it kind of flows, as it seems, it flows toward the Jordan River. It kind of flows into the Jordan River. That's what it looks like. I am no expert at maps, but that's what it looks like. All right, it helps us to orient ourselves. All righty. Chapter 32, verse 24. A man wrestled. The unexpected and sudden introduction of this man who wrestles in the dark with Jacob captures something of the event itself. By the time their contest comes to an end, Jacob is convinced that his opponent is God himself. See verse 30. This is not improbable, given that God had previously come to Abraham in human form. Chapter 18, verses 1 to 15. The story contains an interesting wordplay in Hebrew. God wrestles, Abek, and Jacob, Yaakov. So Abek, and Yaakov by Jabbok, Yabok. So Abek wrestles with Yaakov by Yabok. Abek wrestles with Yaakov by Yabok. Pretty cool. I find it interesting. Yeah. I'm guessing if you're still here with me, you do too. Yeah, pretty cool there, right? So yeah, and we keep seeing these parallels between Jacob and Abraham, right? Where yeah, there's all these parallels, right? So here, Jacob has a physical encounter with God in manly form, right? And Abraham has one as well, right? And again, this speaks to this pre-Christ, right, Old Testament scriptures that speak in an interesting way about who God is, right? God shows up as a man. God wrestles. There's this angel of God character. What's going on? There's one God, one Yahweh. Yet there seems to be multiple, the same Yahweh, but there's only one. They're different, but the same. Don't know, right? Kind of confusing. And yet, you know, you have it there. Give me a second. I'm writing myself a note to put the two powers in heaven book in the description. So if any of you guys want to check it out. All right. And I spoke about that before, about this idea that some Jews pre-Jesus had this idea that, hey, there seems to be one God but two powers in heaven. Right? So kind of a precursor to our understanding of the Trinity. Chapter 32, verse 25. Jacob's hip was put out of joint. Jacob's injury highlights not only the strength of his opponent, but also his own resolve to prevail. Right? So, hey, Jacob's wrestling, not giving up. Chapter 32, verse 26. I will not let you go unless you bless me. Jacob's determination to be blessed is demonstrated by his reluctance to release his opponent, even when his thigh is dislocated. Chapter 32, verse 28. Your name should no longer be called Jacob, but Israel. From the context, Israel is probably to be understood as meaning he strives with God. The alternative meaning is God strives. See ESV notes, right? So as we've seen the notes before, they'll just put the alternative reading. Israel means he strives with God or God strives. All right, but the context makes this less likely. Hosea chapter 12, verses 3-4 reflects on this event. We have to go there real quick. Hosea chapter 12, verses 3-4. Let's see what is said there. Hosea chapter 12, verses 3-4. In the womb, he took his brother by the heel, and in his manhood, he strove with God. He strove with the angel and prevailed. He wept and sought his favor. He met God at Bethel, and there God spoke with us. Very interesting. All right. Hopefully, we remember that when we get to Hosea later on in the year, and we get the full context of why that was there. The renaming of Jacob brings to a climax a lifetime of struggle with others. See Genesis chapter 22, verse 25, verse 22, right? He struggles with Esau in the womb, later struggles with God. Through all this, Jacob has finally come to realize the importance of being blessed by God. The events of the preceding years have changed Jacob. The God of his father has now become his God. Chapter 32, verse 9. See also chapter 28, verse 21. This is the first mention of the name Israel in the Bible. In extra biblical literature, it first appears in the Israel stele of Pharaoh Merneptah of the late 13th century BC. The text says, Israel lies desolate. Its seed is no more. Obviously, by this early date, the name was being used for a people, not merely for an individual. All right. And we talked about the Merneptah stele earlier on I think Prep Day 1, and then maybe on our first day when we talked about the Pentateuch. But I know when we talked about the dates for Exodus, maybe that might it was either Prep Day 2 or the first day when we went over some of the pre-info before we started actually reading the text that the ESV Study Bible brought to us. But this Renata Steele, this is what helps people to date where the Exodus, right? So some archaeological findings that help us to ground the text of Scripture in history. All right, chapter 32, verse 30. Jacob called the name of this place Peniel, saying, "For I have seen God face to face, and yet my life has been delivered." Right. And also too so again another parallel with Abraham. Abraham has sees God in a physical state of a man, right? He sees him in Genesis chapter 18, but then also too before that in Genesis chapter 17, his name is changed from Abram to Abraham, right? And here, as Joseph has an interaction with God in man form, his name is changed, right? Peniel means face of God. Jacob's encounter with God fills him with awe. When later Moses asked to see God's glory, he is told, "You cannot see my face, for man shall not see me and live." Exodus chapter 33, verse 20. In light of this, either Jacob's encounter is a remarkable exception, or alternatively, the expression face to face should be understood as a figure of speech for intimacy with God. In Exodus chapter 33, verse 11, God speaks to Moses face to face. But in both cases, the phrase can imply a close personal encounter or possibly a vision of brightness of God's glory without suggesting a literal vision of God's face. I will say that note is important because I know, and we'll see later on when we read the articles regarding Jehovah's Witness and Islam and stuff like that, because I know the Moses speaking to God face to face oftentimes is used as a way to speak against the way that Christians understand who God is. So sometimes Muslim apologists will use it for there. Other times, Unitarian. So those who are non-Trinitarian, so Trinitarian, Trinity meaning three, so three persons in the one God. Unitarians, one person, one God, the whole deal. Utilize this face-to-face line as an apologetic for their stance. And so the ESV Study Bible notes are denoting that this could be a literal face-to-face, or it could be symbolic face-to-face. But yet, we don't quite know, and the text itself is not quite. The Hebrew can mean either or, a literal face-to-face or a symbolic face-to-face. We are unsure, right? Either way, I don't think it necessarily matters for as far as the reality of the Trinity, because no matter if this is a literal face-to-face, there was still, at least from the text, a literal man, one singular, and then in both, in chapter 32, chapter 33, there was a man with two others. Presumably, the two others was with the spies that ended up going into Sodom, and so it will still make a singular man there. But yeah, sorry, my apologies. I'm recording this very late, so sorry about the internet. All right, chapter 32, verse 31. Peniel is a variant spelling of Peniel, right? So also meaning face of God. All right, chapter 33, verses 1 to 20. Jacob is reconciled with Esau. All right, last chapter, going into the home stretch. Here we go. The account of Jacob's reconciliation with Esau comes as the sequel to Jacob's encounter with God at Peniel. Esau's affectionate embrace of his brother and Jacob's deferential attitude ensure a successful reunion. Chapter 33, verses 1 to 3. With Esau in sight, Jacob arranges his wives and children in order of importance, with pride of place being given to Rachel and Joseph, the only one of Jacob's sons to be named here. Verse 2. Jacob's special treatment of Joseph becomes an apparent theme later in Genesis, see chapter 37, right? And so here we get like a foreshadow, okay? So, and we've gotten this before, right? When we got the genealogy of Nahor, right? And Rebecca was named, right? So there's like a foreshadow of, wait, who's this Rebecca character, right? And so now we get a foreshadow of the importance of Joseph, right? So we get the order, right, where the two slave women and their children first, and then Leah, and then Rachel. So the two slave women and their children, Leah and her children, and then Rachel and Joseph, right? Though, could be stated like, oh, okay, well, hey, she's the only one that only had one child, right? But it could have said Rachel and her child, right? But no, it says Rachel and Joseph, right? So denoting importance. All right, chapter 33, verse 3. Jacob slowly approaches Esau, bowing himself to the ground 7 times. Jacob's actions are clearly intended to express his submission to Esau. Jacob's behavior is noteworthy, especially given the earlier divine revelation that the older would serve the younger. Right? Yeah. Chapter 33, verse 4. Esau ran to meet him. Oh, they put it in here. Oh, man. Oh, y'all have no idea. Oh, my goodness. I'm about to freak out. Oh, my goodness. Okay. Man, I told y'all yesterday that this phrase is used elsewhere in the New Testament. Right. Man. And they put it in here. And I'm freaking out because, over the past few years, and y'all have seen it, if y'all have been with me through other episodes of going through the scriptures, right? Where there are certain things that I see in certain patterns, and I'm like, man, dang, am I off my rocker? Am I living too deeply into this thing, man? Am I, the guy on the gift where he has the lines going everywhere and oh, it's just a conspiracy, right? So I'm not saying that the Bible's a conspiracy, but I can see all these different connections to this. And I brought this up to people before, and I'm like, man, I think you're looking too closely into it, man. So, man, to be validated for once. Look at this. Goodness. All right, here we go. Man. I've been waiting on this all day. Goodness, since last night. All right, here we go, man. I'm excited. All right, chapter 33, verse 4. Y'all probably like, man, what is this dude talking about? Goodness. All right, here we go. We'll get to it. Whew. All right, chapter 33, verse 4. I can't even read, man. I'm too excited. Chapter 33, verse 4. Esau ran to meet him. The unreserved manner in which Esau greets and embraces Jacob reveals that he holds no animosity towards his brother. The description of their reconciliation may well have influences Jesus' account of the lost son returning to his father. See Luke chapter 15, verse 20. Oh my goodness. Man. Y'all, we definitely going there. We are definitely going there. Oh. I hope y'all can feel the elation that I have right now. Goodness. Okay. Man. I hope y'all get excited about the scriptures as I am sometimes. Goodness. All right. Let's see. Hold on. Let me see the phrase real quick. Ran to meet. Okay, let me see something real quick. Ran to meet. Okay. All right. So Genesis chapter 29, verse 13, Genesis chapter 33, verse 4. Genesis 29, 14, 33, verse 4, Luke chapter 15. We're going to do the whole shebang. The whole sheboygan. All right. Whoa, 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 whoa. Dang, come in. Hold up. Sorry, y'all. Mess it up. 13. All right, sorry. 29, 13. All right, here we go. Man. Okay. Man. All right. So we remembered yesterday, we read chapter 28 to chapter 30. We got to chapter 29, verse 13. And we were seeing this picture of, Laban as he gets the news about Jacob, his sister's son, ran to meet him and embraced him and kissed him and brought him to his house. Okay. All right. See this. Now, also, too, as we've done the story, we know now what we feel about Laban. We don't feel good about Laban. Laban's not, he's on the naughty list. Okay. We don't feel good about Laban. However, he has this action. Ran to meet him and embraced him and kissed him and brought him to his house. All right. Now, a few moments later, all right, we see Esau. Again, Esau, we don't feel good about Esau either, right? Hey, spiritually unaware, right? Blaming other people for his actions, trading his birthright, because he can't control his appetite, right? Marrying women that he shouldn't marry. We're not a fan of Esau. Okay. It's two characters we're not fans of. However, when they see Jacob, he gets called Israel. Esau ran to meet him and embraced him and fell on his neck and kissed him. Right? Ran, embraced, kissed. Ran, embraced, kissed. This brings me to Luke chapter 15. Let's set the stage. Now, the tax collectors and sinners were all drawing near to him. And the Pharisees and scribes grumbled, saying, "This man receives sinners and eats with them." Now, just a little note about the Pharisees. Okay? The Pharisees were a sect of Jews. Later, when we get into the New Testament, before we get into the New Testament, there's going to be a couple of prep days of information before we get into the New Testament. I'm not going to make it to where it changes our order of doing things, right? When we do the prep days, but just know that it'll be there. There'll be some prep day information. But inside the prep day information, we're going to talk about the sect of the Pharisees. So there are different sects at the time of Jesus, where Jews have kind of almost like not necessarily denominations, but just there are different groups of Jews. So not all Jews are the same or living the same there, right? And so one of those sects are Pharisees. A lot of times when we talk about the Pharisees in church, we talk about them as just this group of leaders, right? However, some of them were leaders, right? But it's like today talking about progressives and liberals, right? You have some conservatives that are leaders. Or sorry, progressives and liberals. Progressives and conservatives, right? You have some progressives that are leaders and some conservatives that are leaders, right? And you have conservative leaders, progressive leaders, right? So at the time of Jesus, there were some Pharisees who were leaders, right? But other, people who were Pharisees, it were just, regular people, right? But Pharisees. But if somebody was a Pharisee, right, they basically knew what we call the Old Testament, but for them, it was their scriptures. They knew them front and back, memorized them. Okay. And so well that if you just gave them a few words of a phrase, they could tell you exactly where it was at in the Old Testament, right? So they knew it well, right? So if somebody started giving them a phrase or telling a story, repeating certain phrases, they would know. It's almost like if you had a friend that, they know every song anywhere that it does. So if you start saying a sentence about something, they start singing this. They start singing a song that goes with that sentence. You're not even talking about that song, but you just happen to say those words, and they're like, oh, da da da, that thing, right? Or if you say a particular phrase, and they start thinking about a movie that has that phrase in it, and they start acting out the scene, right? So the Pharisees had that type of knowledge of the Old Testament, right? So if there's any little phrase that happens, they know, where, especially if somebody is good at connecting these things, they know where whoever's telling the story is trying to take their mind. That's the backdrop for what's happening here, what's about to happen here in Luke chapter 15, right? So here Jesus is eating in a place, right? Pharisees are there with him, right? Jesus is eating with Pharisees. It's a whole nother lesson, but just okay, all right. So then tax collectors and sinners are with him, okay, and the Pharisees are getting mad that he's eating with the tax collectors and sinners as well, right? And so Jesus begins to tell him the story, right? And so he tells a series of parables, right, to try to communicate a lesson to the Pharisees, right? So he told them this parable. What man of you, having 100 sheep, if he has lost one of them, does not leave the 99 in the open country and go after the one that is lost until he finds it? And when he has found it, he lays it on his shoulders, rejoicing. And when he comes home, he calls together his friends and his neighbors, saying to them, rejoice with me, for I have found my sheep that was lost. So I tell you, there will be more joy in heaven over one sinner who repents than over 99 righteous persons who need no repentance. Okay. Second story. Or what woman, having 10 silver coins, if she loses one coin, does not light a lamp and sweep the house and seek diligently until she finds it? And when she has found it, she calls together her friends and neighbors, saying, rejoice with me, for I have found the coin that I had lost. Just so, I tell you, there is joy before the angels of God over one sinner who repents. Okay? Starting to see the picture? Here we go. And he said, there was a man who had 2 sons. Okay? We've seen before stories of 2 sons. Here we go. And the younger of them said to his father, it's some things I'm starting to see now. I ain't seen before. Okay. And the younger of them, we've seen 2 sons and a younger one. Okay, here we go. And the younger of them said to his father, Father, give me the share of property that is coming to me. And he divided his property between them. Not many days later, the younger son gathered all he had and took a journey into a far country. And there he squandered his property in reckless living. And when he had spent everything, a severe famine arose in that country. And he began to be in need. So he went and hired himself out to one of the citizens of that country. He sent him into his fields to feed pigs. Now, this pigs reference, again, these are Jews who talked before about clean and unclean animals. Pigs were one of the unclean animals. Pharisees also were highly concerned with purity, right? So this is starting to be a very offensive story to them. Pigs? Oh my goodness. Not only is this young man being offensive to his father, asking before his father dies to give him the share of his property if his inheritance is coming to him, right? Basically saying, Dad, you're kind of dead to me now. Let me go ahead and give my money now. Oh, the dishonor, the disrespect. Pharisees, man, they grumbling. Whew. Even more. All right. Not only is that, this dishonorable, young man, disrespectful young man, is now feeding pigs? Oh, gosh, the disgust. And he was longing to be fed with the pods that the pigs ate. And no one gave him anything, right? Jews aren't even supposed to touch pigs. He's feeding them. Now he wants to eat what they're eating. The slop? Oh, the horror. But when he came to himself, ooh, somebody touch your neighbor, say when he came to himself, he said, how many of my father's hired servants have more than enough bread? But I perish here with hunger. Boy, that's a sermon right there. Somebody who comes to know their own condition. Their eyes have been opened to see their own condition. So they want to turn from their wicked ways. I will arise. I will arise and go to Jesus. No turning back, no turning back. And go to my father, and I will say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Treat me as one of your hired slaves. And he arose and came to his father. But while he was still a long way off, his father saw him and felt compassion and ran and embraced him and kissed him. Lord Jesus. Ran, embraced, and kissed him. And the son said to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. But the father said to his servants, bring quickly the best robe and put it on him, and put a ring on his hand and shoes on his feet, and bring the fattened calf and kill it, and let us eat and celebrate. For this my son was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found. And they began to celebrate. We're going to stop here. Y'all see I'm about to get the praise break going. Oh, man. I don't even go to a church like that anymore. My church, they ain't doing praise breaks. You're not doing no. Right. Praise break. Okay. The genius of Jesus. Not only has he made, see the progression here. The way he starts, the first parable, he says, what man of you having 100 sheep, if he lost one of them, does not leave the 99 in an open country, go after the one that is lost until he finds it, right? He is trying to teach a heavenly principle that they already understand, right? And oftentimes, unfortunately, we talk about this as if God is doing something unusual when he leaves the 99 and goes and after the one. But here, Jesus is saying, this is something common that you do. What man of you having 100 sheep, if he has lost one, you already do this. You already go after the lost one. Isn't it something that if you already do this, would it be unusual for God to do it? So he's setting the stage. Here's another one, right? Woman has silver coins, right? If probably was saying in our day, right? Hey, if a woman had 10 $100 bills, lost one, wouldn't she sweep around the whole house looking for the one? And be like, call on her girlfriends? Girl, I lost my $100 bill. I found it. Come celebrate with me. Girl, who I found it. Look what the Lord did. Right? So he's trying to set the framework for them. Hey, we already do this thing, but we celebrate over things that were lost. This is something common to us. We do this. Okay? Now, for y'all are getting mad that I'm accepting the lost ones because they are disgusting to you. You accept lost things that are, oh, okay, yeah, we all go after these lost things. Yeah, of course. But not after the disgusting lost things. And so now he goes and he gives them a disgusting story. Hey, this in an honor and shame culture, this man is being disgusting. He is dishonoring his father. Not only that, he goes and touches the most disgusting thing in your minds, pigs. And not only that, he wants to eat the disgusting stuff that they eat. Oh my gosh, you guys are throwing up right now. Not only that, let me take you guys down another level. He wants to come back home. Not only does his father accept him, his father does something that you won't do. Run, embrace, and kiss him. And guess what Jesus is saying? You guys are worse than Laban and Esau. Sinners who you hate did this and you won't. Oh my gosh. Oh Lord. Regular people can embrace lost things and you won't do it. Laban, who you despise, Esau, who you despise, did this and you won't do it. God embraces sinners. God embraces sinners. And sometimes we need to hear the hard truths. And Jesus is coming off the top rope on these boys. Coming off the top rope. So, sorry for my animation there, but I think the way that Genesis or Luke chapter 15 is constructed, it is so brilliant. And one of the reasons for me doing this entire deal here is so that folks can see the brilliance, the beauty of the scriptures, and have such a love for them. So, all right. Back to our regular scheduled program. Woo! All right. Chapter 33, verse 8. All this company I met refers to the droves of animals that Jacob had sent ahead to Esau. All right, so we saw that in the last chapter. Chapter 33, verse 10. For I have seen your face, which is like seeing the face of God, and you have accepted me. Jacob draws a remarkable parallel between his earlier encounter with God and his meeting with Esau. Like God, Esau shows unmerited favor to Jacob. Right? This is oh my goodness. I don't know if I've said this yet, but I know I've told this to other people. I don't know if I said this on this stuff and any of our recordings together. But the gospel is preached on every page of the Bible, not just the New Testament. As we're able to see I've talked about the flavors, the aroma, the smells, the colors. As we're able to see those things in the text, we start to see oh, snap. We start to see the things that are laid out explicitly in the New Testament. We start to see them in the Old Testament. And we start to see the seeds of the gospel. And we start to see why in Luke chapter 24, when Jesus sits them down and he does his whole Bible study of the whole Old Testament and says, this was all about me. We start to see it. We start to see it now. We come through like, oh man, hey. And they're showing here, hey, look, Esau, someone that we despise, is acting like God towards Jacob. So later, earlier tonight, I preached to our teens at church about loving your enemies, right? See this relationship that God has, even in the way that he tells the story. Hey, Esau's not a good guy. We don't like him. Yet he's acting like God. He's running, embracing, and kissing Jacob, giving Jacob unmerited favor, even though he's his enemy. Here, an enemy of Jacob is loving Jacob. And yet we who call ourselves children of God, we can't love our enemies. Man, so much here, so much here. Chapter coming on down, man. I'm coming on down. All right, chapter 33, verse 11. Please accept my blessing. In this context, Jacob's blessing refers to the tangible present of livestock that he gives to Esau. Previously, Jacob had deprived Esau of the blessing of the firstborn. Come on now, let me make connections here. While Jacob cannot restore this particular blessing to Esau, he seeks to make restitution by giving him another blessing, which comes from God's blessing of Jacob. All right. So Jacob's trying to make things right with Esau. Chapter 33, verses 12 to 14. While Esau desires to have his brother return with him, verse 12, Jacob politely refuses, using the travel weariness of his children and livestock as an excuse, verse 13. Yet again, Jacob addresses Esau as my Lord and refers to himself as servant, verse 14, until I come to my Lord and seer. Apparently, Jacob still does not fully trust Esau and has no intention of following him to Seir, verse 17. From the point where Esau and Jacob met, the shortest route to the northern border of Seir is approximately 100 miles or 161 kilometers to the south, while Succoth was only 4 miles or 6.4 kilometers to the west. Chapter 33, verses 17 to 18. The story contains an unexpected twist at this point, for Jacob had earlier indicated to Esau that he would follow him to Seir, verse 14. Jacob, however, relocates to Succoth and then Shechem. Succoth, verse 17, is in the Jordan Valley, where the Jabbok River joins the Jordan River. And we saw that on the map that we looked at earlier. And because of my last, I don't even know how long that my little rant was there on Luke 14. So we're gonna keep it moving. But we saw where Shechem was on the east of the Jordan River, and then across west of the Jordan, was right east of the Jordan River. On the west side of the Jordan River was Shechem. Shechem, verse 14, about 20 miles west of Succoth, was the first place named in connection with Abraham's arrival in Canaan. See chapter 12, verse 6, right? So this is Jacob, right? Going to the land of his father, right? Redoing the journey of Abraham. Okay. Chapter 33, verse 19. From the sons of Hamor, Shechem's father. The reference to Shechem links this episode with the next, where he is one of the central characters in the story. 100 pieces of money. The Hebrew term rendered here money, kesata, is used rarely in the Old Testament. See Joshua chapter 24, verse 32, and Job chapter 42, verse 11. The precise value is uncertain. I'm gonna finish reading these notes here, and then I want to go back and look at that these last few verses here and kind of help to set us up for tomorrow. Chapter 33, verse 20, altar. Previously, Abraham had built an altar at Shechem. Possibly, Jacob reconstructs this earlier altar for the Hebrew verb used to describe his action is not the usual one for building altars. Since this is the first altar mentioned in connection with Jacob, it signals his commitment to worship the Lord. This is reinforced by the name he gives the altar. El Elohe Israel means God, the God of Israel. Jacob identifies the God worshipped at this altar as the one whom he had encountered at Peniel and had changed his name, right? So we see this upward trajectory of Jacob's faith, and this is kind of like the height of it right here. Okay, all right, so that's our last note for the night. I do want to read this last part, though, of Genesis 33. Man, I hope this is helpful to you guys. I really do. As you can see, my passion for the text, only because, as I've stated before, it has done wonders for me. I mean, it has done wonders in my life. As you know, I think I'm gonna make sure I post a link of the effects of Bible reading on people. There was a study done on what just reading the Bible 4 times a week, so every other day, what it does, the effects that it does. And I will say, many of the things that are in that study have happened for me. So, so I'll try to remember to make sure I link it down below in the description. Okay, chapter 18. Chapter 33, verse 18. And Jacob came safely to the city of Shechem, which is in the land of Canaan, on his way from Padan Aram, and he camped before the city. And from the sons of Hamor, Shechem's father, he bought for 100 pieces of money the piece of land on which he pitched his tent. Right. So the city of Shechem. Okay. Then you have a man named Hamor. He, I don't know here. I don't think it's not saying here what his position is. Maybe he is, a leader of the city or whatnot. But his son is named after the city. I'm not sure if they'll have a note here whether Shechem was named at first, or if Shechem was named after the son Shechem, right? Even though we do get it with Abraham, it said 12, chapter 12. Abraham passed through the land to the place at Shechem, to the oak of Moreh. At that time, the Canaanites were in the land. All right, so that's the first time we see Shechem. Yeah. So, the place Shechem, and then there's the man Shechem. Okay. All right. We are done with our notes for tonight. We're going to get to the history of salvation in the Old Testament, these verses, and then we are done. Thank you guys for sticking around. Again, like I said, I hope this has been a blessing for you and helped in your understanding of Scripture. All right. Here we go. Chapter 33, verse 24. God protects Jacob, fulfilling his earlier promise. Chapter 28, verses 13 to 15. In protecting the line of the of chosen offspring leading to Christ. Galatians chapter 3, verse 16. Chapter 32, verse 24. God appears in human form, anticipating the incarnation of Christ. Chapter 33, verse 4. God delivers Jacob and his family from a feared attack by Esau, fulfilling his promise to Jacob and his offspring. Chapter 28, verses 14 and 15, and protecting the offspring leading to Christ. God has been preaching and protecting from the beginning. Preaching and protecting from the beginning. Eternal Father has been preaching and protecting. Man, I hope this blessed you. May you rest today, tomorrow, throughout the week, and God's paternal preaching and his paternal protecting. It's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen.